Okay, so we are here with Charlie Beaton and Brian Flag. I'm wondering if I can ask you guys to introduce yourselves.
Sure. I'm Charlie Beaton. I own Big Dipper Ice Cream here in Missoula, and I've had it for 25 years as of this year.
Oh, wow.
But I grew up in Helena, but I've lived in Missoula since 88.
Awesome.
And Brian's my banker.
All right. I'm Bryan Flag. I'm with First Security Bank of Missoula. We are a division of Glacier Bank Corp, based out of Kalispell, Montana. I'm the senior credit officer at the bank, so I'm involved in various aspects of the lending function. And I still do work with a few customers like Charlie on a direct basis. And we've been dealing with each other, I would guess, for probably the last 15 years. And happy to be part of the conversation today.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for giving up some of your time. I know it's busy for everybody. So Charlie, maybe you can tell us just how it's been going for you in terms of Big Dipper.
Yeah, it's not going terrible. Like, we're not originally, after you get past the shock of like, oh, we aren't looking at the same season that we were looking at, earlier, but we have a lot of different avenues of our business. So we have wholesale business. And so we've been able to keep supplying grocery stores with pints of ice cream. And that's been going really well. So my ice cream production manager, she's been working steady ever since. The retail store, what happened was right before the governor kind of shut things down, we can be open because we have walk-up business, which is really nice for us. But it was hard managing the line of people, and there was just so much uncertainty, and I think some employees were kind of nervous. So we shut things down for 3 weeks. And then about a week and a half ago, I think was it a week ago, 2 weeks ago, recently we reopened to do online orders. And it was great because we've already been kind of set up for that through our Square store. So we were able to pivot pretty easily to that. People order online or call and pick up. We have a limited menu, and that's been actually going really well. Surprisingly better than I thought. And we do Uber Eats. So that's where we're at this moment. And then we're working in to phase in back to regular service by May 1st.
Okay, awesome. I want to come back to those platforms later in the talk that you're using, because I think that'll be valuable to hear people have you explain kind of some of the technology that you're using. Sure. So I'm curious if I know you've tapped into the CARES Act, so maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you've tapped into and then what the process was like for you. Yeah.
Well, we tapped into the PPP like a lot of businesses, and for our business, I feel it's a pretty good fit. And I can tell you more about that later, but it was actually really easy for us. And I have the advantage of having a good relationship with a bank and a banker. So it's made it super easy, and I'm really fortunate. So the people that don't have that relationship, or maybe they don't have they don't have the same relationship with a bank or whatever. There's a lot of scenarios that these people are probably having a harder time. So I feel really fortunate, but I do feel bad for the people that aren't in the same situation that I am in.
Right.
I called Brian right away, and he's worked with me and
just navigated through it. So Brian, maybe it's our understanding that today Congress is passing through a second round of the PPP and Untitled. So maybe you can talk about some of the updates on your end, what you understand is happening, and what some small business owners should be doing to prepare for that.
Okay. Before I do that, I'm going to close my office door really quickly. I'm sorry. I'll be right with you.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So yeah, that's our understanding as well. We do expect another round of funding will be approved today. We don't know exactly when that's going to become available. And If the first round is any indication, there will be a lot of demand for the funds. Our expectation is that the funds probably will not be available more than a few days. But again, those are just really guesses. To give you an idea, on the first go around, First Security Bank, we processed over 900 applications in a very short period of time for about $100 million in total loans. So our average loans have been around $100,000. That program was kicked off on April 3rd, and I think it was about 10 p.m. Mountain Time, 12 o'clock Eastern Time. So it started first thing in the morning there. And we actually were in the bank that evening, just curious about whether we could actually get into the SBA portal and if we'd have any success in being able to launch some of the applications. And we were able to do that. There were some issues early on, but on the next day, that Friday, and on the weekend, we managed to actually enter, a lot of applications, and we've been successful in securing financing for lots of folks. With respect to Charlie's situation in particular, Charlie's a pretty proactive owner and manager. This is something that didn't surprise me at all. He's on top of a lot of things as they relate not only to his business and lots of other folks, the issues that small business people are dealing with. We were able to get together an application in pretty short notice. One of the advantages and benefits, I think, of Charlie having a relationship for the bank as many years as he has is, we had a lot of historic information, not only financial information, but also things that are important in the scheme of things like corporate resolutions, information from the Secretary of State that indicate, he was valid in good standing. A lot of things that by virtue of having a banking relationship over time and periodically needing to borrow money, that maybe other small business folks haven't been in that situation as much, or maybe not at all. So the process can be a little bit more daunting, I think, for folks that particularly haven't had to deal with a situation, or maybe don't have the assistance that, Charlie has from accountants and things like that as well.
Sure. So if you were to take those people who maybe aren't, as well established as Big Dipper ice cream, what would, and I guess I'd ask you and Charlie this question, what are some tips that you would give these small business owners to prepare for this next round? And also our understanding is some banks are taking additional applications right now and some are not. So
right.
So I'm just curious, what could people do if their banks aren't taking loan applications right now? Are there things they could do to prepare? And if their bank is, are there just documents that would be helpful?
Well, I'll try and address that first off. We never actually stopped taking applications. As the process proceeded, we were trying to be pretty careful about letting people know that we make our best efforts. We couldn't guarantee that they'd be approved for funding or that, they would receive it. We didn't really know a whole lot about the timing. And so there were a number of applications that, we are hoping to input, this go around. The other thing is we didn't know for certain that there would be another round of financing available. That's been clarified in the last few days, obviously. And we have had additional applications, just very recently. I had another one just yesterday. And I'm guessing we've probably got about 100 applications in queue right now. And we feel pretty good about where we're at with respect to those applications. if people were interested still as of today to try and get into the program, I mean, they really need to get something done within the next 24 hours, I would say. The application itself is fairly straightforward. It's only a couple of pages. You know, a person would be well served to go to the www.sba.gov website. The applications are available there. There's a lot of background information on the PPP Paycheck Protection Program in particular, and some of the guidelines with respect to what types of expenses are eligible. But it's at this stage of the game, I mean, it is urgent that they do that ASAP. So I don't know if I've answered all the questions, but I think just generally, I think it's important for small business people to try and not only have a good relationship with their bank, but also with respect to other professionals that may be able to assist them, whether they be accountants or attorneys, or, you know, there are local organizations like what's now called MoFi, Montana Community Development Corp, that are very helpful in this process, and they actually are doing some of the disaster funding themselves, and I think are really trying to help serve some of the, let's say, kind of micro business folks that haven't had as much experience, you know, historically with traditional bank loans.
Excellent. Okay, Charlie, do you have any thoughts on people who might want to get in for this round of PPP, on what makes a successful application, or a pro tip of some kind?
Well, I think having good financial records is really key, because they're going to ask you. You need to be able to bring up your payroll and all that information, and so having really good records is really important, so you're not digging through papers or whatever. So that's key. And I feel like at this point, most people I know that have been interested in the program have found a way to get the application done. And like Brian said, MoFi I saw was doing this now too. So there's a ton of resources. I mean, if you don't know how to do it by now, I mean, there's just the SBA.gov alone will give you most of the resources you need.
Right.
But ultimately, it's not necessarily a good fit for every business too. So,
Yep.
Right. I think Charlie hit on a really important point with respect to this program in particular. It's a little bit different in the sense that there's not as much financial information necessarily involved, in background, you know, credit reports and things like that. It's more about being able to try and demonstrate, you know, impact of the, you know, current financial economic environment, and provide information that supports the basis of the loan request. So it's a little bit more targeted that way.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think so. We'll shift in. I think that was really helpful, and I know for other people on the call, there's also the EIDL program, which you apply directly through the SBA, and then there's also some unemployment opportunities. So I think the Department of Labor just launched a new website there, and then personally, you can also talk with your banker about mortgage deferral if you're a solopreneur and you're really struggling.
Definitely. You know, I don't know that we'll talk a whole bunch about the EIDL program, but that is a direct loan program where applicants apply directly to the Small Business Administration. Those loans are actually underwritten, approved, and funded through the government. And we have heard of a few of our customers that maybe felt that program was more applicable to their situation, where they have at this stage at least received some kind of interim funding. I believe that the final approval process will be a little bit more lengthy in that program, but again, we're really not involved in that per se, so I can't comment, as to a lot of direct experience with how that might happen. That's probably more like a typical government disaster program with respect to how it's administered, when there's a flood or a tornado, a hurricane, whatever.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Okay, great. Well, I think we'll wrap up the CARES Act stuff. Brian, I'm so grateful that you could join the call with us. Thank you so much.
I
Really appreciate
that. And thanks also for making the mention, folks that do have existing loans, whether they're consumer loans, real estate loans, business loans. I mean, if they're having issues with respect to finances right now and being able to make payments, most of the banks that I'm aware of are trying to accommodate those needs, and they'd be well served to be proactive and try and contact the lender, let them know the situation. And I think that there's a good probability that they'll be able to either work out some type of a extension or a deferment if need be.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for hitting on that. Okay, we're going to shift gears and go into a couple other questions for Charlie here. Charlie, with the CARES Act, with maybe the slowdown of the retail business, have you noticed a need, or have you had to renegotiate any contracts you have, or even contracts that you're supplying ice cream with other people?
No, but nothing like that. We do have we do ice cream. We make ice cream for a bunch of national parks, and because the national parks aren't going to open for a while, that's all on hold. So that was our big loss, I think, right now, just immediate. But a lot of that manufacturing isn't done here anyway. So, but and all the wholesale in town, we sell to most of the restaurants in town, and nobody's buying any ice cream right now. But our ice cream makers are still busy. We're staying busy, and we've always done a pretty good job at adapting to different situations.
Okay, that's good to hear. And so on that adaptation, you started to talk about I think before this call officially started, like something that you've been doing with the truck, also your online sales. Tell us a little bit more about some of the things that you're doing to pivot your traditional business into this new environment.
Yeah, the biggest is online ordering. We've had a Square store for some time where we sell merchandise and gift cards, and now we're able to people can easily order ice cream online from just even walking up from their phone in the parking lot. They can order, and so we have you pay on your phone or your computer, and so you can walk up and pick up. It's a limited menu right now, and I see that Hank Donovan's on this call, and he's been really helpful because he's our web designer. He was able to change our website so immediately we could send people, direct them right to this online store. So I appreciate that, Hank. But we've been able to adapt super fast. We also set up a QR code, so even someone could take their phone and just open their camera and point it at the QR code, and it takes you right to the menu. You can order, pay. It's super fast. And I see a lot of businesses just aren't set up for that yet. There's a lot of, using the phone and putting their credit card saying their credit card numbers over the phone. And, but I feel like we got ahead of a lot of that. So that's been really good for us. The truck isn't really running yet. We've done some fun things with the truck so far, but we could be using the truck as well.
Can I jump in real quick on that, on Charlie's topic there? I just wanted to say, I think, Charlie deserves a lot of credit. He's been what I would consider an early adapter and early adopter in so many ways over the years. He was an early adopter of using social media to promote his business. He had an ice cream truck before food trucks were popular here. I mean, it was the first or second one that I can think of. Charlie's done a great job of being able to look at situations and change his business or supplement the business accordingly. He's not just strictly a retail ice cream store. He does wholesale business. He's experimented with various locations and been pretty successful in that regard. So I mean, he's a great resource, I think, for folks, especially in the small business arena that might be facing similar challenges.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. I was just talking to another business owner this morning, and I was just talking about with him was the excitement of innovation. And I think the reason I've done a lot of different things is I have a little bit of a short attention span. I'm not good at focusing on one thing, and I get excited about, I travel somewhere and I see an ice cream truck. I'm like, we've got to have an ice cream truck. This sounds fun. Or, the online ordering thing is something we've been planning to do for a long time. And so it just kind of it just works out for us. But I do really enjoy the challenge. Like I look forward to it, and I can embrace the challenge. Like, this is going to be a really tough year, but at the same time, it could be really exciting. And we also we're opening a new store this year too, which is going to create more challenges in this environment. So it's not really for us. It's not about like, hey, how much money can we make or how successful can we be, but kind of almost like how much fun can we have with it? What can we do that's different? And it's fun to learn from other businesses, because I love seeing, a business like Cafe Dolce is doing, we got dinner there the other night, and it worked out really great, picking up like pizza kits. And it's like this, and I was talking to Peter Lambros about it, who owns Cafe Dolce, and I was like, this is awesome, because once you get back into your normal business, you can still do this, and you just created a whole new revenue stream that you didn't have before. So the businesses that adapt are going to come out on top, and the businesses that lay down right now, they're the ones that might not be around.
Yep. Yeah. So entrepreneurial, everything that you're talking about, just the challenge, the ability to adapt, the excitement, because I think you're so right. It is a devastating time, but in these times of devastation, there are more unique challenges that we need to rise to. People still need food. They still want ice cream. How are they going to get it?
Yeah.
I love that. So I'm curious about like the online store, going back to that, and Square. Did you just incorporate your Square into your existing website?
It was already there. So everything was in place. We already had the Square, and we already had a link on our website. But what Hank from Astarna did was make that link even more direct, so people could find it real easily. Because before, you'd have to, you go to the website and you click store, and then you get to it. But now it's just right there, front and center. And it, may or may not be something that we keep on there, but in the future. Awesome. But anyway, it's worked well, because we would. Brian, who is our general manager, has already had all of it set up. So, and our other stores in Billings and Helena had already been working on some online things. So we also have them to share information with, which has been really helpful.
Okay, awesome. That's great.
One other thing I'll say too is we work pretty closely with some other ice cream shops. We call it an ice cream summit. And almost yearly, we get together with our friends from Village Ice Cream in Calgary and Molly Moon's Ice Cream in Seattle. Village has 3 shops, almost, and going on 4 or 5. And Molly has, I think, 8 now. And she used to work for me, and I helped her a little bit get her business set up 10 years ago. And we all work together, and it's great because we don't compete against each other. So And another thing I was telling a friend of mine with a business is like, talk to other people in your industry, whatever, if your business is whatever it is, find out what they're doing right now. I have a friend that owns a gym, and I said, go online, go on Instagram and look at what all these gyms that are like yours, what are they doing, and see what kind of innovation. And so you don't have to necessarily reinvent the wheel either, but you can learn from people in your industry.
Right. Well, and especially, I'm sure Molly Moon during this time, and she's Seattle, isn't she? So they've
Yeah,
been
yeah.
like in stay-at-home orders for a long time.
It's been pretty tough for those guys, but they'll be okay.
Yeah. Interesting. So really quick, I think everyone on this call would love to hear just what fun things you've been doing with the truck that you're saying earlier. Because I think it's fun for people to hear that.
With the truck, I just thought it would be fun to deliver some ice cream to people yesterday. So we just filled up the ice cream truck with ice cream, and we just drove around and gave ice cream to different people, friends of ours mostly.
I think that's fun. And so maybe we'll be seeing your truck driving around in the future with a new revenue stream idea, which would be really fun.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some things that have surprised you, maybe in a positive way, as you've been navigating this new ecosystem?
Surprising me how, maybe not as much surprising, but what I've seen more businesses really supporting each other. And we're on the hip strip. It's a different world down there. If you go down Higgins right now, it's getting better, but so much of it's closed. It's really closed. Whereas you go down Reserve Street and it's like any other day, Walmart's packed and Target. But in our neighborhood, it's a lot of really small businesses that are working super hard to survive. And I think, frankly, people are really scared. And so I see a lot of people all supporting each other and talking to each other, and I'm seeing that everywhere, and I think that's important in helping each other. Even businesses that typically would compete with each other, I feel like they feel like, oh, we're in this together, and I see them helping each other a little bit more.
That's really great. And I'm wondering too, have you had any talks with people since yesterday and the governor's new issue that retail, for example, will be opening in a limited capacity starting on Monday? Have you talked with anybody on the hip strip or downtown?
I've talked to a couple people, and people are just still trying to figure out how it's going to work. And our county health department is still coming up with how they want that to roll out. I know people like Nick Jacoda, I talked to him yesterday, and I know he's been working with the health department on guidance on how that's going to look. So I don't think anybody knows for sure, but you can all assume that there's going to be less tables and
right.
anything. It might be temperature checks,
Right. And have you thought about like what that means for Big Dipper? What you guys might start doing as of next week or later?
Sure. Well, we've already started doing a lot of it, we have face masks for everybody that if they're not wearing them yet, they will be wearing them any day right now.
Got it. Yeah.
And we also have the person that paints our sidewalks coming this week to paint big blue squares, and they'll go back 6 feet from the window. So if you or your family comes to Big Dipper, you can stand in this square, this area. And then the next one is 6 feet, and the next one. And I know Dairy Queen has, I think they have red dots right now, and they're doing it. But we'll have big blue squares, and that'll go out to the sidewalk and down and around.
Oh, fun.
Those are things. And then we've also, with all of our stores, we're working on a policy where every employee that comes to work is going to get a temperature check. We ordered infrared, I think they're called infrared thermometers. So they don't touch, you point it at the forehead. And so we'll have a chart. And so either the shift leader or the manager every single person that comes to work will get a temperature check. And then there'll be a checklist, whether, you have a cold, how do you feel? Things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Really interesting.
We'll probably start out with less people in the store as well, people working. So we might just have 3 people instead of 4.
Right. Okay. So they can kind of maintain, or if somebody were to fall sick, and I'm sure your business is already kind of shift oriented anyway. So you're probably at an advantage where people are working different shifts. So if somebody were to fall ill, you'd have coverage.
Yeah, we do pretty well with employees. And we have quite a few because we have a lot of people that are dying to come back because it's getting close to summertime.
Sure.
And the college kids are, my daughter included, or everybody's back. So everybody's in town. So. Right.
Good. Okay. Well, what would be a final piece of advice you want to share with other business owners, maybe Main Street businesses who are facing similar challenges?
Well, I would hang in there, and I think there's going to be more support. There's the $1.25 billion that's coming through the federal government to the governor's office this week. I'm on the COVID-19 task force, so I've been working with that. So I think for the people that have fallen through the cracks and the businesses that the PPP does not work for them, and maybe some sole proprietors, I feel like there's going to be some help for other people that aren't getting it, because like I said, the PPP doesn't work for everyone. So you need to be careful that it will work for you. Because 8 weeks from now, you may not be at full speed. So my advice would be to look carefully at how you decide to use the money.
Right.
But besides that, and just be innovative.
Right. Yeah. Rise to the challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So just for anybody who watches this after the fact, any ideas on the timeline and trajectory of that 1.25 billion? Like, when should people be tuning in to what's happening with your task force?
The recommendation to the governor's office has to be in by the 29th, which I think is a week from today.
Wow.
So it will be very fast. That group is moving at warp speed. I've been meeting with some other small business owners that are on the task force from across the state, and working on some ideas to help people. And I think it'll be implemented super fast, and it has to be spent by the end of the year, and it has to be spent on things related to COVID-19. So.
Okay, awesome. Great. So everybody should be tuning in next week or the week after if you're listening to this and needing some extra support. People like Charlie are amazing who are fighting for you. So we're really lucky to have you, Charlie. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for joining us. And yeah, really appreciate your time, Brian's time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Brian, for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
Needed help.
Awesome. Okay. Well, really appreciate it, you guys. Have a great rest of your day, and everybody stay healthy.
You too. Thank you.
We'll try. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.